Hello everybody and welcome back to the Galactic Armory. Today I'm going to be covering how we cast our helmets here at the Galactic Armory, and I have someone to introduce you guys to, Jamie.
Hi folks, thanks for having me here.
Jamie's already been in a few TikToks and videos in the background with me doing voiceover, but I want to try out doing a duo voiceover.
Excited to be here.
So we'll see how it goes. So today we're going to be casting a Phase 2 realistic Clone Trooper helmet, right?
Yeah, it was an interesting method because we're using something that neither of us have really done before, a new tool.
It was very exciting. But we're going to be starting out with this 2-part silicone mold.
Yeah, and these molds were made fantastically well. As you can see here, I am clearing out any detritus, just any dust, because all of that will be picked up in the cast that we pull out at the end. You can see me getting it clean.
That's a compressed air gun. Very handy for all sorts of things. But we want to make sure that that silicone mold is as clean as we can get it.
Yeah, and you can see that I'm wearing gloves as I'm doing this because any oils, any sweats on my hand will be picked up in the cast itself. It can mess up adherence. It can mess up, the finished product.
It can pick up like a hair.
Easily.
So once the mold is clean, you're going to be putting it into this mother mold, this fiberglass shell.
And it's a fiberglass shell with a wooden exterior that outlines the entire thing, and you'll see why that is in just a moment.
Right. And that's going to prevent the silicone mold from just flopping around everywhere, because you could see that it's not very sturdy, not rigid at all.
And you can see that I'm also pushing into the mold registration keys so that you make sure that everything stays in place and all the dimensions are right when we actually cast.
Yep, that's what all those dots and lines are. Make sure that things line up. So once we have that mother mold over the silicone mold, there's something we'd like to do.
Yeah, so what we're doing here is applying a release agent. So a lot of people use such products as ease release, a spray, but we like to use talcum powder or baby powder. And we do an entire coat on the inside to act as just a release so that the resin, when poured in here, will stick to the sides but not stick permanently. Once we're done, we can pull it off.
Right. And we tried that ease release and we had the occasional bubble and spot, but this baby powder really helps pull the resin into those corners and really helps prevent those air bubbles.
That's exactly right, yeah. It's a capillary action that allows it to pull in the resin into where it needs to be, and because this baby powder sticks to the edges, it'll also help the resin to stick to those edges.
So we're going to be blowing out some of the excess. You just need a very light coating in there. I think that's what you're doing here.
That's right. And you need to be careful because any baby powder that actually gathers up will potentially cause a bubble. So, we just get very thorough here, clear out the entire inside, and you'll just see a white sheen over everything. And that's when you know it's ready to go.
Yeah, you just really need a super thin layer of this powder for it to work. You obviously don't want pools of the baby powder. That will transfer to air pockets or bubbles in your cast. So once we've got the thin layer of baby powder, now we're going to take it to the cement mixer, our new favorite tool for casting helmets. Our new favorite tool is a cement mixer. We use it to rotate the casts in a nice consistent motion, and it works surprisingly well. And I think I got this one for $180. Compare that to like a rotocasting machine, it is much more affordable. But you're going to be mounting it to these, I believe, 3 3D printed parts that we have in there. I'll link the files to those in the description.
Yeah, so it just uses some wing nuts so they can be easily taken on and off. They're just mounted into place, held in 3 points so that there's not that much wobble, which there would be since this thing is being rotated at a relatively quick speed.
And I think that's part of the reason, well, maybe one of the biggest reasons that we have that piece of wood in there. That is going to provide rigidity to the whole thing and allow us to use those wing nuts to mount it. I do want to thank KSA Props on Instagram. He's the one that walked me through this whole thing, and trying it out was a lot of fun, and he provided me the files, and he was okay with me providing them to you guys. But once we've got that mold mounted, we can start mixing together some resin. So the resin we're going to be using is called Smoothcast 65D. It's got a pot life of like 5 minutes?
Yes, 5 minutes up to 15, depending on the temperature.
Mm-hmm. But it's a 2-part mixture. You're going to mix together
so it's
how much?
Between 140 and 150 grams per part, totaling around 300 grams per layer.
Mm-hmm. And is this just for the first layer or for all subsequent layers?
That would be for all layers, and when you're doing the last layer, if you need to patch any areas, then you can do a half, quarter batch, whatever you need.
Okay. And for pouring in the first layer, you kind of like to do it by hand.
Yes.
Right?
So what I often do is I don't start with the cement mixer on. I start with it off, and I make sure to pour specifically into the mouth area of the phase 2 helmet, or any area that typically is thinner and more difficult to reach. So it's a very slow pour, and then I gradually rotate it to get into those areas just to start them off, compared to some of the areas that are a lot easier to reach.
And for that phase 2 helmet, that kind of underside of the aerators is kind of hard to reach, so we want to be especially sure to hit those spots. So once you've got the first kind of coating in by hand, you just kind of repeat this process, but this time turning on the machine.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'll pour it in and still guide it just a little bit, but at this point I can use the arm on the side of the cement mixer to raise and lower the axis, and just watch it to see where this resin is sloshing, where it's pooling, and just guide it around. And that's a lot easier than a lot of slush cast methods, which is holding a mold of this size, which is quite heavy, and doing layer after layer for the bulk of an hour.
It could get exhausting, especially if you're doing more than one helmet.
It's a great workout, though.
Yeah, it is. But that's what I love about the cement mixer is, it tilts one way at a consistent speed. You can adjust the angle in case like parts of the dome are needing a little bit more plastic, or, it even tilts to a negative axis, so you can really hit those areas around the neck.
And as the resin cures, it actually will change color. It'll become the white that you see in our finished product. From that, you'll be able to actually quite easily tell where there's thin layers, because you'll see the mold shining through it. And so just to hit those, focus on those areas as it cures. But the issue with that is once this starts curing, a lot of heat will build up, because it's an exothermic reaction.
Yeah, and if you stick your hand in there when the resin is curing, you can feel the heat coming off it.
And that will actually result in a lower pot life, because it will go from a 15-minute cure time to around 5 to 8 minutes until that resin becomes unworkable.
If it's already like hot in there, it will shorten the pot life pretty considerably.
And you'll need to work a lot quicker.
So how many total layers are we working with here?
So I like to work with 6. That will make a strong helmet with all of the thin areas completely covered. It will be strong enough but still lightweight that it will result in a very good product, if I do say so.
And you can see what some of the cured resin looks like here in its mixing container.
Yeah, so this is also what we like to call a proof pot or proof cup, because it's proof that the resin is hardening.
It's really satisfying to peel out, isn't it?
Oh yeah, every single time.
So after you've got the 6 coats of resin in, we're going to let it cool down, right?
That's right, because whilst the outside layer will be completely pure, the inside layer will still have a little bit of softness to it. I want it to cool down, then I'll decouple it from the cement mixer and prepare it for demolding.
Generally, how long do you wait after the last coat?
About the full 15 minutes of a pot life. Even if it's curing faster than that, I would just want to keep checking it with my hand, just to make sure that it's getting cooler, and then you can touch it by that point and physically see that it is in fact pure and firm.
Okay, sounds great. Yeah, once we've got all 6 layers of resin in there, we're going to take it off the cement mixer, demount it, and prepare it for demolding. Okay, so we've got the helmet demounted from the cement mixer. Now it's time to separate it out.
Yeah, so we start taking off the wing nuts, and we have to pry this apart because, well, we want to make sure that the mold inside is nice and firm. So the jacket on the outside is pretty tough to get apart. So we'll use a pry bar just to get those pieces apart, and we set it to the side because, well, we don't want to damage it. Mm-hmm. And then we start to take off the silicone mold, the back of the matrix mold.
Right. And this mold, again, was made by KSA Props. He does great work. But in some molds, like if it's a, what's it called?
Jacket mold or
like a brush-on mold, like a single part. You'll have to like unroll it, that can sometimes damage the mold. But
jacket molds technically, or definitely have a lower or shorter life than a lot of matrix molds because you are pulling apart or stretching the silicone.
I feel like with this one, there's not a lot of stretch. Like the back just kind of lifts off, and it'll kind of break off from those registration marks. But,
really, really easily, which goes to credit the mold maker. Mm-hmm. And on that point, he made sure to put the positioning of this matrix mold so that the seam line is on very high points so that it's very easy to sand off and clean.
That's a big thing. Is sometimes you see it a lot with helmet molds is it's two halves just straight down the middle. And so what happens is you get that a little bit of flashing, which is common for molds like this and kind of any silicone mold. You'll get that flashing, but it'll be like right through the hemisphere of the dome and is very visible and sometimes leads to a little bit more work in sanding.
Yeah, and so that's one thing that we really tried to avoid with ours, and what we'll be trying to do in the future with any new molds that we make.
Mm-hmm. And so that line is actually built right into some of the hard edges and creases of the helmet, so it's hidden quite well. And honestly, you just really have to take a deburring tool or a little bit of sandpaper, and it comes right off, and you can't even tell it was there originally.
So at this point, I like to just inspect the helmet and make sure that it's up to our standards. I see if any light is passing through any specific spots, and if it's good to go, it's good to go in the store.
Yeah, so that's about the whole process then. We'll do that for about like 6 more times in a day and get some good pulls out.
Yeah, and our pulls seem to be very consistent now. We're very happy with our product, and we're looking forward to making more in the future.
Well, guys, that's how we at the Galactic Armory cast our Phase 2 helmets. We have lots of other molds, and I feel like we're adding more all the time.
And we're really looking forward to producing more, showing off what we've got in the future.
Mm-hmm. But thank you all for watching. Leave a comment saying hello to Jamie. I'm very happy to have him here. He's a great help. And I'm sure you'll see him a lot more and hear from him a lot more in future videos.